Hello, hello. All right, we'll wait for everyone to get their notifications and wait for Anne Marie to get on here. Sometimes it takes a minute. Hi, John, how you doing? Hey, Lauren. It's glad to see those pictures of you out and running around again. Hi, Sherry. I'm just gonna wait for Anne Marie to get on here and then we'll get it kicked off. So excited to be back on here. Yes, we are, John. Absolutely. We definitely are. New beginnings. Yes, yes, yes. Oops. All right, there we go. There's Anne Marie. I told her like 3 minutes and then I think I hit the button. Okay, there we go. Oh, Sherry, you're up late.
What?
Hi, Jillian.
Hello.
Hey, hey. All right. I'm sure people will continue to get notifications and all that good stuff. Hi, Suzanne. All right. Okay, well, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time at the beginning of this. We're just going to kind of jump in and kind of explain the title of the broadcast of Who's on Your Dartboard. The Lord's really been talking to me a lot about relationships and how we manage them. And, you know, he's also been talking to me a lot about his love. And that's, you know, kind of where those posts kind of came in earlier this week and last week, just about the love of God. And when we understand that and we have a grip on that, hey, everybody, you know, then we start taking that and putting that into, you know, our
Our
relationships.
relationships.
Oops.
Oops.
Do you have
Do
an
you have
echo
an
again?
I just unplugged mine because I had an echo with
Oh,
mine,
okay.
but now it seems to be okay. So I
Oh,
unplugged it and plugged it back in. So it's good. It sounds good now.
okay. Whew.
No.
Okay, good. So anyway, I was just kind of talking with him about, you know, relationships and all this stuff. And he began to give me this picture of a dartboard and how we have all these different kinds of relationships. And each relationship has a place on that dartboard. Hey, Lila. And every person has a place on that dartboard, you know, going from the outside in, and where we place each of those people in our lives into that dartboard. And the bullseye, you know, is our inner circle group of people. And there are very few spots in the bullseye. And you have to be very selective and very strategic about who you place in your inner circle on that bullseye. And I also felt, you know, that we've just gotten to this place. Hey,
Hey,
Tamika,
Tamika.
haven't seen you
Haven't
in
seen you.
forever. And we've gotten to this place, you know, with social media where, you know, everyone's like, oh, I'm a social media friend, most social media friend, you know, this, that, and the other. But really, we've forgotten that it's okay to have acquaintances. You know, it's okay to have those, you know, not so deep relationships. You know, you can have really great interactions and you can learn something from someone's post, but they're not, you know, the friends, they're not inner circle. And I think when we find a way to define each of those relationships and the boundaries around them, then I think you will find a lot more peace in your life and how you're interacting with those people. And, you know, and I just, you know, I always say like my social media acquaintances are kind of like that outer circle of the dartboard. You know, I know your name, you know, I know that, you know, you're married or not, you have kids, you have a dog, you know, that kind of surfacey stuff. and that's okay. And I think we've gotten to this point where we feel like we need to know everybody and everybody knows us, and it can become very dangerous, and people can get wounded very, very quickly. And so that's what we wanted to just kind of talk about tonight, and just kind of go back and forth about our dartboard, and how we, should structure that. And I'll just leave it with that and let Anne-Marie chime
Sorry
in.
about the chiming that you actually heard coming in. We have our alarm set so that we can hear, if someone comes and goes in and out the door. So the dogs were actually going out. So I had to turn that off so we wouldn't get constant chiming. And I think sometimes, when Amy brought up the whole dartboard thing, I thought like, wow, that really defines it for me, because, we tend to believe that people that we engage with more frequently, or family members, are in that inner circle. And sometimes that's not so, because we might engage with someone on a more surfacey level frequently, but that doesn't mean that they're actually in that inner circle, in that deep area, which I know Amy has a great thing she said the other day about a baby pool, so I'll let her handle that one. But it was a great analogy. That's the word I'm looking for. When you're talking about the deep. So I picture that center of that dartboard as the deep. And, it's just an area where we're really sharing raw and real parts of our lives with people on an everyday basis. And we're discussing things so that they know our ins and outs. We're not just, commenting or liking certain things. We're actually engaging in personal conversations. And I've recently really, really struggled. It's been a reason that I've had so much absence on social media, is that we have been going through so much personally with some added responsibilities for some family members in our home, that we've just been overwhelmed. And I couldn't add one more thing to my day. And I was realizing that I was depending on people that I wasn't engaging with on a really deep personal level to help me feel like I was afloat, to be my life preserver in the midst of chaos. And it really made me pull inwards. And I kind of, was out to sea alone for a little bit when I was struggling in that area, because you don't know anymore, with social media being out there, who truly is in that center dartboard. Sometimes you can't really picture that. I mean, yeah, Facebook likes to say close friends or family follow first, and all of the, or acquaintances. But honestly, it's really who we engage with behind the scenes. Amy and I have only ever seen each other in real life for 3 days in the last 3 years. And those 3 days were all at one time.
Yeah.
But we've had more conversations than I have with family members or some friends that live right down the road. So just to, define that you can have a deep relationship with someone on social media, but it's not all the time.
Yeah, well, and I think, if you have some watermarks for your inner circle people, it helps you define that. Just throughout my life and my experiences, you learn, unfortunately, painfully sometimes, what those watermarks need to be. And, your inner circle people, there's a lot of times there are people that have put themselves there, and they shouldn't be there. Whether that's through manipulation or control. Those people typically do not leave you feeling all that uplifted. Those people are not your inner circle people. You also can't have inner circle people who are yes men, because they will yes you right off a cliff. And your inner circle people need to be the ones that will stand with you. They will dream with you. They will encourage you. They will correct you. They are the ones that have your back when you're not in the room. And you will know those people. And sometimes your dartboard bullseye might be empty for a little bit. And that's okay too. Because the Lord, I feel like, is being very, very strategic right now about who he is linking together and who he's putting in relationship. And when you are listening to him, when you are being, directed by Holy Spirit, who is supposed to be in my inner circle, he will show you and you will know, so there are only a few spots for those inner circle people. And it's okay if you don't have family members there. Some people might be really, really blessed and have really great family members in your inner circle, but some people, it's just not that way. And so it helps to kind of have those watermarks so that you can really discern who you should have there, so that you don't have to walk through repeated cycles of wounding because you constantly have this person in your inner circle and they shouldn't be, whether that's through manipulation, control, telling you yes when they should tell you no, encouraging you to do something that you're just very conflicted about. Those aren't inner circle people. Your inner circle are going to sit there and talk about that thing back and forth and say, you know what, I really don't think you got that right now. I think you need to step back. I don't think you need to, make that decision right now. I would, that kind of stuff. Those are the inner circle conversations. And then when you leave that inner circle, they set the bar. That is the bar of that deep dive that you get to take. And then outside of that is another boundary line. That's where you put family, other friends, whatever, but they don't have all the information. They don't get all of your, they don't get all your dirty laundry like your inner circle people do, right? And they, but they can be there. They can be great friends and they can be great encouragers and people that, want to support you and pray with you and, and just have those kinds of relationships. But again, you have to remember when you're talking with those people that you have a boundary line, that there are just some things that they don't get to have information on. Does that make sense? And then it just kind of goes out from there. And the reference that Anne-Marie made earlier about the analogy, I said, there's a lot of people on social media that are on that outer circle and maybe not even on the dartboard because they're in the kiddie pee pool. There's just a lot of junk in the kiddie pee pool that you just don't want to be stepping in. And that's okay too. You can be, we might be connected on social media, but I don't even know you. I don't know your name. I don't, that kind of stuff. There are those connections there. And it's okay to just say, yeah, I don't know you, but glad to meet you and know your name now. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be careful because sometimes some people, this is where the discernment comes because you have to do a constant reevaluation. When the Lord moves you into a new season, he's going to kind of give you kind of a stirring to just evaluate who's around you. And sometimes there are some people that were on the dartboard that are now in the kiddie pee pool. But it's not necessarily your journey. It may be because they are journeying in a different way and at a different pace. And then this is where other things happen that I know Anne-Marie wanted to talk about. I'm just going to say it real quick. This is where we have to be steadfast and constant in who we are on social media and who we are off social media. And that is, if you are being directed by the Lord and you walk in his love and you're walking in honor and respect for other people, when you are doing this whole rearranging of your dartboard in this new season, you are going to do it honorably and you are going to handle the people honorably. Now, a lot of times it's not going to take a whole long in-depth conversation of I'm moving you from this place to this place. I mean, you don't have to tell people all this stuff, right? But they're going to notice that maybe you've distanced a little bit. Maybe you're not sharing as much. And then that's when that conversation comes, communication in love. you know, okay, I do love you, but this is where I'm at, and I'm seeing that, this is where you're at, and I love to come together with you, but right now, however it needs to be worded, and whatever the situation is, I'm trying to come up with something, but it's a way of rearranging your relationships as the Lord rearranges it. Sometimes He just divinely does it for you, and there's no conversation needing to be had. But sometimes there is, and we don't want to do it abruptly. We don't want to do it in a way of spewing rejection to other people. There have been so many people who've just been rejected and just dropped off the face of the earth with no explanation, no nothing, and that's painful. And if you want to be that person walking in love, honor, respect, being that constant, this is who God's created me to be. I don't care what anybody else is saying and doing, that this is how I'm going to handle this. And we don't want to title it, and we don't want to look for labels to place on other people in order to justify our distancing. Because I've seen it all. So this could go all night long, but just, you are the one managing your dartboard, and you decide how it's handled and who is where, and it all needs to be done in love, honor, and respect.
Well, and I think, as far as like me being absent from here, part of that had to do with if I was on and taking time commenting on, every person I know, trying to support every person I knew that's on that outer ring of my bullseye, or even in an inner ring, but not quite right there in the middle, then I was neglecting the people that were right in front of my face. And I know Amy and I discussed a couple times where we haven't had as many engaging conversations as we used to, where, we went from 20 a day to like one, for a while there. And again, a lot of that had to do with increased responsibility on my end and her 4 kids being home all at once. But, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to those that are in front of us in our face that need that attention or want that attention or are in that inner circle, instead of trying to hit every single person that's out there, because then, we tend to neglect those that are really, truly there for us. But, there's 2 scriptures that have come up to my mind in the last few months, and one of them was, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do," and I'll get a little bit more into that later on. And then there is the 1 Thessalonians 5:11, so encourage each other and build one another up. And when you are in these relationships on social media and you hop out there, you actually begin to take on the mood of social media. I put it to Amy this way a little earlier, that Marty and I were watching a show over the winter, and we were like getting angry with the people in the show because they were ridiculous. And we swore we're not going to watch it at all this season. But we were finding ourselves getting angry, and then that's how we felt when we were done watching the show, so it's not really worth watching. I would hop on social media in the tiny little minutes that I had between things going on in our own house, and it would give me anxiety, or I would see people, not encouraging others or putting them down or being critical of their post. And I just kept thinking, we're really here to encourage one another. And I feel like Instagram's a little healthier than Facebook, but, it happens in both places. But, it's just so much of, and I think we do that because we feel so bad about something going on in our lives that we need to nitpick at somebody. Even one of the most ridiculous things in the world, if we spell a word wrong in a post, someone's going to call you out on that. And I just really think that those are the types of things that I wish we would stop seeing, because we're really trying to engage in a positive level. We're not out here trying to have fake relationships. I don't put anything fake out there about my life. I've sat here and given my entire testimony. Everybody knows my ins and outs, and if you don't, we have plenty of videos on our website and YouTube that spells out everything I've been through. My life is not perfect, but I do feel like when it comes to other people, we need to be encouraging them. You know, I don't want to put all the highlights and happiness of my life out here. That's why we have this ministry, so other people can connect and understand that you can walk through trials with victory. But all you see is, you know, the political arena out there has made it worse than ever. And then now it just seems like everybody's picking on everybody, and not just politics or religion. And now it's like every single thing. And I really just feel like we need to utilize this space to be a space of building up and encouraging. I mean, how many times in the Bible does it actually say that? I mean, I was pulling up verses on that and I couldn't even get through 25. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to sit on here and like say all these, but you know, there really are. I mean, that is what we're supposed to do, you know, and loving others is encouraging them, and encouraging others is loving them.
Absolutely. I think, you know, there it's kind of a double-sided coin. You know, we're talking about, you know, having healthy boundaries and setting everything, you know, right. But I think on the flip side, there's so many that are in such a massive love deficit, you know, in their lives, in relationships, with themselves. And until there's some healing that can come to that, they're never going to have their dartboard set up right. You know, they're always going to have, you know, intrusive, manipulative people in their inner circle, and the really good people like hanging off the edge. And it's not going to get rearranged until they are internally rearranged. Um, I just I see it so much. I see it so much, and there's so many people that have massive voids in their life, that they just are craving, you know, that relationship, not necessarily attention, but that relationship.
Absolutely.
You know, so they're, you know, they're reaching out and they're grabbing on to this person to mentor, to mother, to father, to friend, to something, and it ends up being very one-sided, or ends up being very parasitical. Parasitical in the sense that that sick person, that person with the void, is now leeching on to the person, you know, their host. But eventually, you know, they'll get filled, but then the host will like flick them off, or they become toxic to the host, right? So there's no win-win situation in that circumstance. And until people are able to find that healing, yes, orphan spirits, until people get that healing, no relationship is ever going to make sense to them. And every relationship, once they get into it, they'll start realizing, oh, you know what, maybe this one wasn't the right one. You know, like I said, there's so many ways to go about this, but it really is, yeah, so everyone is accessible, but when you've got all of these people that are kind of like Swiss cheese, all these holes
Yeah.
everywhere, and they're trying to grab people to fill them in, it ends up hurting them more than helping them. And and so, you know, I think, you know, when you really ask the Lord, like, help me, like, I need you to fill all of the voids right now until you can heal the wounds of all those voids, and then he will bring those people, you know, into your lives. You know, like, I know my voids, but I'm not, you know, one that like is rushing into every relationship because, oh, I need a father, oh, I need a mother, you know, because those are two big voids in my life. I don't have parents. And so, you know, but I know that there's still some healing that needs to happen. And there have been people that have been stepping in that are a lot like that relationship, and it's starting to like, oh, that's really wonderful, you know, but I'm allowing that to grow slowly because I'm slow walking it. I'm allowing the Lord to
Right.
to let me step into that slowly because I don't want to rush in. I don't want to just grab on to every person out there. I don't want to walk through that hurt
Well, and I
again.
think, you
It's too
know,
painful.
yeah, you saying that, like a lot of that, if we rush in, you know, it can lead to unmet expectations, because you suddenly have all these expectations of people, and then suddenly they're not there, and that can damage us. It depletes our self-confidence to engage further with others in the future when we're rushing in. So I do feel like taking your time and really getting to know people, before you really say that they're in that inner circle, is very, very important. you
Yeah.
know um, it can dishearten us, moving us to a place where we no longer even want to engage. And I mean, I've found myself in that same circumstance, and it's kind of crazy because this is something I've been mulling over, for months now. And a lot of my conversations with Amy have, circled around this many, many times, trying to seek what I want to put my attention towards and who I want to put my attention towards, because I am stretched right now. We're caring for some family members. I have two teenage daughters. We run our own business. Amy and I want to do ministry. We've begun working on some different things, and pulled in 20 different directions. We need to really think about what we're doing and who we are engaging with. And I don't want to have those hurt feelings. I don't want to have, you know, these high expectations of other people and then feel crushed when I feel like they haven't followed through with who I thought they were. And that's a lot, that's more on looking at myself. That's more my problem than it is the other people's problems, because had I not put such high expectations on them, they wouldn't be disappointing me,
Absolutely.
and so it's not always the other person's fault. But and that said, when we realize these things, we also have to realize that that other scripture that I mentioned, where it's not just building others up, but it's also forgiving others because they know not what they do. Other people don't always understand the hurt and
Hmm.
wounds that they place on someone with just, say, neglect in a relationship, or absence, or complete abandonment out of nowhere, and not actually giving a reason why. And I feel like what Amy was saying earlier, when we have certain circumstances, that we speak directly to people so that we break down the barriers and really truly understand one another. Because if we're not doing that, then they shouldn't be on that center bullseye of our relationships anyway.
Yeah.
Lori Suter had a great post. I was actually, a post of hers today popped up in front of me, and I said, oh my gosh, I haven't seen Lori's stuff in a while, and she always writes such good stuff. So I went over to her page to see what's going on in her life, and I ran across something she had posted on July 22nd, and it was so in tune with how I've been feeling. And then when I got to the bottom of it, and she had that Luke 23:34, forgive them scripture, I was like, oh wow, this is right on point. But she was saying, we may initially pull ourselves away and separate from pain when people don't seem to be meeting our expectations. We withdraw ourselves and sometimes, put up a barrier. And other people might not always understand that we are hurt or offended or confused. They immediately might think that we are burning our bridges. And I think what she said about how she has transitioned to making sure she's not ever burning bridges, but instead understanding that others don't know exactly what they're doing at all times, that it is okay to forgive them and consider them still on that outer ring of the bullseye, but just understand that they may not, at least for this time, be in that center circle. And that's okay. You know, a lot of it's unintentional. You know, a lot of the things that I've walked through in the big, massive battles in my life in the last several years, you know, when someone's going through their own circumstances, maybe that person on Facebook that you're trying to engage with is really trying to get a job. Maybe their marriage is falling apart. Maybe their child has been caught several times with drugs. You don't know that, and their disengagement could be part of that. their reaction to something you said could be part of that. And I think a lot of that is where the criticalness comes from on social media as well, because we're having such a hard time in our lives that sometimes bolder people than me, because I don't like to pick people apart on social media, but bolder people than me might put that woundedness out there and make it more wounding others, or taking a jab at them because it makes them feel better to one up them, to know how to spell something or know the rest of a scripture, or, you know, criticize how they decorated their bathroom. I don't know. I could go on and on.
There's
There's
always
just so
something.
many, there's
Yeah.
so much misinterpretation out there. And I just felt like Lori's post was amazing, as it really called it to not burn bridges, to not consider those people that moved to the outer ring, you know, gone, but that closeness that you were counting on is just an unmet expectation that that person either wasn't aware of, and if you know that they were aware of it, they may not be capable of it. And for whatever reason that is, often they don't know that they're doing it, or they're clouding their mind due to something that's going on in their own life. So
Yeah.
be happy, get along. Whatever you called the other title of our show before we actually got on.
Oh, I think, if we determine in our own journey that, we want to make sure that we are open and asking the Lord, bring healing and all of that stuff in our own lives. And we make the determination, like I said, that I'm doing the best I can do. My determination is to be constantly who I am all the time. Not one person on social media and another person off social media. Not saying one
Amen.
thing, doing another. You know what I mean? Like being constant and being that way with every interaction that I have with people. I think when we get to that place where we really allow the Lord to guide us and direct us, we can be that rock that is thrown into the pond, and the ripple effect that our interaction has with other people might then encourage them to do the same, and then the ripple effect from them. And um, and I think if we can do that, at some point there will be a flip. There will be a switch for a lot of people on social media where they too are kind of tired of the keyboard Nazis. The ones who have all kinds of things to say and they're so bold, but if you got them in a room, they would cower in the corner because they don't really like confrontation, but because nobody really sees them, they're just there's always going to be those. There's always going to be the trolls. But if you make it a point to just say, you know what, this is who I am. This is who the Lord's created me to be, and like it or leave it. But this is how I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to handle people. I will never intentionally wound somebody. I will. My goal is to always leave people better after a conversation with me than they were when we started talking. That's just my heart. I love to encourage people. I love to pull out that gold that's in them. So if we make it, if we step into that, with that healing, comes that revealing of the giftings that the Lord gives us, and we can leave people better. And again, we can start that ripple effect. But I think a lot of it is, people, we all have bad days. We all have bad days. But I think, I don't know, all week this week, I kept hearing the term mama bear. And I'm like, well, I know what that term is. Everybody's mama bear over their kids, And I began to think about it, how people are, they're mama bear over their kids. Yes. They're mama bear over their spouses. They're mama bear in their prayer time over everyone else, their finances, all this stuff. But I began to sense that the Lord was saying he wants people to become like a mama bear over themselves, not in a lashing out or attacking way, but in a boldness. Becoming a mama bear over my emotional healing, becoming a mama bear over my mind, over things that upset me, over things that trigger me, over things that try to come in and rob my peace. Mama bear over my thought process of my body. Hollywood and all of the media propaganda, they don't determine your beauty. Christ determines your beauty. He determined it at your birth. He said that you were created in their image, the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. You are a piece of the face of God, and there's nothing more beautiful than that. So who are you to say anything less than that, right? So mama bear over your own thoughts about your own body, mama bear over any sickness, that sickness, that cancer, that pain, all of that stuff. They are intruders in your home, and you need to get your Holy Bible gun and get it out. It's like, you got to go. And I just feel like so many people, they're so bold in speaking out and praying over others and other situations that they've forgotten how to be bold and mama bear over themselves, to say, yes, I need this. I need the Lord to come in and heal this, because I know he has more for me. I know he has relationships for me. I know there's something bigger for me outside of this place. So what do I need to do? I need to get more boldness. I need to start taking control over my own mind, my own emotions, my own body, my own thought processes, all of that stuff, over all of the attacks that have come against you. Because, if you don't have you in control, there ain't no way you're going to be speaking anything over anybody else.
That's right.
That sounded so Southern. Sorry. Got on a roll. But, I just felt like that's really what the Lord is wanting to say tonight. I mean, because when we talk about relationships, unless we have a good relationship with ourselves, we are not going to have a good relationship with anybody else.
That's right. Amen.
Not a single person. So
Amen. That's a lesson I've tried to teach my girls over the last few years, that you have to like yourself before, you put somebody else on a pedestal, like a friend or, somebody at school that you're trying to be like, things like that, that you really have to like yourself first, or you're never going to be able to engage with different people out there. Yeah. And I mean, I've been really thinking about that and talking about it over the last few weeks with both girls, because I mean, I didn't grow that backbone until I was 40-ish. I didn't understand that I needed to like myself, which definitely makes us stronger and gives us that backbone, before engaging in relationships with others. I was out there actually, treading water with so many, because and trying to keep my head above water with them, because I would try to be somebody else that I really wasn't. So you have to be happy with yourself. I've spent the last 10 years, 8 years, celebrating who I am, more so than, being sad about who I used to be, and now being 48 years old. I'm not sad about that, because while I know that I was a nice person to the biggest extent in my 30s, I wasn't really me all the time when I engaged in things with others. And, not that I'm perfect with that now either, but I'm much better than I was. And when people don't appreciate, my individual characteristics of what makes me me, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. That was my biggest indicator of my healing, was when someone didn't really like me. I was okay with it. It was just, their loss, that kind of thing. And I didn't have that before. I'm a lot like Anne Marie. I spent a lot of my life so uncomfortable in my own skin that until I was able to allow the Lord to really come in and like Lisa's saying, pull all them skeletons out of that closet and really deal with it and really heal it, then finally I was like, oh, wow, I kind of like myself, and I don't need other people's approval. And really when that begins to happen, it happened in a real time of isolation for me. And that was good for me too. I hated it. I was kicking and screaming the whole time. I'm not going to lie, but it was purposed and it was purposeful. And it showed me how to be me without anyone else, with no other voices in the room but my heavenly Father. And going through healing processes, it is very scary, because there are some things that some really don't want to look at, because it is just that painful. Totally get it. I completely understand. But if you are finding yourself, craving and desiring these relationships, you've got to make sure that your heart is healed and whole, so that you can determine what those what those God relationships are, not just good relationships. And, because you can have a whole lot of good relationships, but they're not going to be exactly what you need. And I was going to say something else, and it just went, whoop.
Well, I think we walk into so many situations where there's new groups of people, that we're going to meet, and every time we turn around, whether we're moving into a new job, or taking online classes, or we're attending a new college, anything like that that brings us into a new group of people, we're going to need to be discerning as we step into each one of those. And again, like bringing back up what you said before, not rushing to say, this is my end all be all group of friends for the rest of my life. There are going to be those tried and true friends that stick around, through thick and thin. And, just in the last 3 years, you're the one, Amy, that's been there every single step of the way. And, never, even when we've had quiet periods because one or the other of us have had things that we're dealing with, we've always been there for one another and listening to one another. And again, that's another huge lesson. I'm praying that my children learn these things sooner than later, that one place is not going to define your life and how you're going to interact with others. My daughter's in a very small art school, and there's a lot of cattiness that comes about by the time you're a junior or senior. And that's something that she cannot stand. She is an encourager by nature, and she's actually picked on and bullied because she's an encourager, which is so terrible. So we're doing these college visits, and we go to St. Mary's down in Southern Maryland, and she's like, this is where I want to be. Everybody's so nice here. This week she's at SCAD down in Savannah for the whole week, and she's like, this is where I'm going to go. Everybody is so nice here. And she's basing that off of where she's coming from, where people have become not so nice by the time you leave there. And I try to tell her, you're going to be dealing with that type of circumstance throughout your life, whether it's an online group of friends, whether it's your school, your college, a job, anywhere. That's what you're going to be dealing with. And you're going to be dealing with discerning who's going to stay by your side in situations in that group and who's not, and who you're going to keep in that inner circle and who you're going to allow to be on that outer circle. And it doesn't, everybody is going to have those inner circle friends, and we can't be hurt when we're not included in that. And I think that all goes back to that unmet expectations, that we need to understand that we're probably not meeting other people's expectations just as much as others are not meeting ours. I am sure somewhere out there I'm not meeting people's expectations of who they thought I would be in a relationship with them as friends or something, that I can't believe that it's always me, I'm the victim, and that's the kind of mindset that I'm trying to get the girls to understand. And that just because it's all, I don't know the saying and I'm trying to think of it, but something in roses. I'm not good at sayings, but anyway, that it's not all bed of roses, I guess, maybe. So when
That might
you
be it.
something that doesn't mean that you're not going to experience any strife there. Heck, when I went to college, I was in my final internship, and we were interning in Bermuda. You know, we had the officers' quarters to stay in. You know, we had these cushy, fun counselor jobs for all the local kids and the Navy kids that were there. It was the best, but there were 9 of us, and we all lived on the same floor. And there was one guy, that poor guy. And although we loved each other, and I'm actually more friends with those people than I am so many people from throughout my whole life, didn't mean that there wasn't strife, there weren't fights, there weren't arguments, there weren't misunderstandings. That's going to be everywhere. And I think that's where Lori's post comes in again, is don't burn bridges, because you never know what's behind those things. And I really feel, do your best. Always ask others what they're feeling. If you feel neglected, you know, yes, neglect can be a form of abuse of a relationship just as much as other forms of abuse. But neglect might also be stemming from something that person is going through, and they can't engage with others during that, you know, circumstance, situation.
Yeah. Well, that's the kicker, isn't it? I mean, you got to have communication, and social media lets you just kind of be, a quick click or a like or a share maybe, or a comment, and it's not really a conversation. And I think that's kind of becoming a lost art, almost like cursive writing and a lot of other things. Still honoring and respecting people in the midst of disagreements. Oh my gosh, how dare you respect someone when you don't agree with them? But
That's right, Lisa.
and I liked what and I liked what you said about the fact that you're not always the victim, and I think a lot of people need to snap out of that too, because we're not perfect either. We are all in a process, and in those processes, we're gonna make mistakes. But it's how, when those mistakes are brought to you, how you handle that, in your communication. I would pray that it's, and this is my prayer, that I'm this way too, because I've not perfected it. I won't in forever. But, I pray that I'm always humble. I pray that, I'm the quick to apologize and recognize where I hurt someone, so that I can restore that person, and that wound doesn't get left festering. But if the person doesn't talk to me and tell me what I did, then I can't make it right.
And I think
So,
that's where you hit the nail on the head, is that, if if the person doesn't respond when you're asking them, did I do something? Why am I not included in this? Why are you not reaching out to me anymore? We haven't talked in a long time. If they're not responding to you, that's an issue with them, because that's not how you engage in relationships, especially when you get older. I mean, that's what something my daughters would deal with in their high school. You don't just
yeah,
disappear, especially if someone's asking you.
yeah,
They deserve to know, and if you know that there's a reason, because there are seasons of friendships and people come and go, or at one point, you know for perfect example, like, I was really close friends with a girl that I was on the PTA with when our kids were in elementary school. She since then has gotten married and has had a younger child of her own and been very, very busy. I've been going through all kinds of crazy ups and downs with the loss of my dad and the moving in of my in-laws and things like that. And we lost contact for a very, very long time. But now, like, her daughters just graduated and are going off to college, and she's being right there for me, giving me all kinds of advice, different things to do for scholarships, different things to sign up for, different ways to do things. And she's coming back full circle as one of those people that I'm having lunch with and being close to again. And so I think, that's a way of not always assuming that bridges are burned, but then back to a situation where someone's not being open and honest with you about why they are no longer, you know, speaking to you, reaching out to you, or responding to you, then that is their issue. And that's when you just have to let it rest in God's hands, because I know several times that that has happened to me in my life, and you just don't understand. You really truly don't. And we can beat ourselves to death trying to understand why people don't like us or want to be around us. But we have to know that, you know, God is the one that loves us beyond anything else. And when we're strong in that relationship, we don't so much worry about these ones that flounder out there. The lines of communication absolutely have to be open. I can tell you one thing, Amy and I would not be in this close sisterhood if we would always allow our feelings to lead our reactions. Yeah, it doesn't mean that every once in a while one of us doesn't step on the other's toes, or we say something that offends the other person and we're not aware of it, but we communicate. And if one of us is not being communicative, then we say, I hope that didn't bother you what I said. I brought something up to her the other day, and then I like later I was like, oh, she didn't respond. And she didn't respond because I said I was falling asleep while I was typing, so she just wanted me to go to sleep. You know, and so it was a total, but you got to communicate, because otherwise it's fine to let friendships go. It's fine to like not have them be in the forefront of your life. But if someone's trying to communicate with you and asking you questions, just be forthright with them. This is where I am with my
Yeah.
life. You know, there were certain groups that I was in, and I had to stop messaging with them because of different circumstances that were going on in my life. And I had to step away from PTA at one point because of circumstances that were going on in my life. And it's not always about the people that are in the group. Sometimes it's about what's going on in front of me or whoever's out there.
Yeah, I'm loving what you're saying, and I'm reading the comments as well that, you know, the manipulation and the control, um, and using, you know, a ceased communication as a way to control, that is, those people need to like, sorry, you're just not good for me right now. You're kind of being toxic, and you need to put them in the kiddie pee pool section of your dartboard. And you know, you should never feel the need to walk on eggshells for anyone. um, you know, I'm just going to be very vulnerable right now. I used to be very like a bull in a china shop. I would just say what was on my mind, and I didn't care who got chewed up with my words. I did not take anybody into consideration when I opened my mouth. And it was always nasty. And and so it, people would walk on eggshells around me because they didn't want to tick me off. That's not a way to live, right? And and then I realized that I actually was walking on eggshells with people when I stopped being so angry, when I you know, when the Lord like changed me, then I realized that I was like so scared of confrontation because I was scared that I would become, you know, I would go back to being the way I was. So then I was walking on eggshells because I didn't want to have any conversation that wasn't like nice and sweet and quiet, and you know, all this stuff. And so I went from one extreme to the other. And that just was a very good indicator of the healing that needed to happen within me, you know. And it wasn't anyone else. It could have been other people, but until I was willing to look at myself first and realize, okay, this is where I needed to be healed, and then then the Lord starts building those watermarks for you. Okay, I am not going to be in a close relationship with anybody that talks to me this way, that treats me this way, that manipulates And I've had to cut very close people back out of
Mm-hmm.
my life. I've had to build that distance, and it wasn't easy, and it wasn't pain free. It was very difficult, but at the same time, yeah, it did me too, Holly. I was so confrontational, and then it just paralyzed me, where I didn't want to confront anybody about anything. And but it's all a process, and there, I don't know. There's always going to be there are always going to be difficult people, and there are always going to be people that come in and want to dominate or control the atmosphere. But you also need to realize that you dictate your atmosphere, and that person, you can take away their perceived perception of their ability to shift the atmosphere in you and in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when you gain control of that, then those people will just dismiss themselves from your life, because a lot of those people, when they realize they can't control you, then they won't want anything to do with you. And again, this, it has to be, your response needs to be who you've set in your mind, who you've determined, this is how I'm going to be. I'm not going to be disrespectful, but I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to set that boundary. You know what? I care for you, but you are not going to talk to me that way. You're not going to treat me this way. You're not going to, try to control this situation. I'm in control of the situation. I mean, it's difficult. It is not easy, but it has to be done. It
Well, and I
has to be
think
done. And sometimes
sometimes,
those people do have to go bye-bye. Go
well,
ahead.
sometimes we're just fighting for so many relationships in our lives that we're just trying to seek out different people to be around. I know Marty and I used to have a great set of friends where we used to live, and we don't see them anymore. We had a great set here that ended up having to relocate due to work. And, we have some friends here, but it's always minimal when you find couple friends that really interact with both of you. And for a while, we were really trying to make things happen with different people until we really sat back and said, but what do we really have in common with them? And it wasn't
Yeah.
anything bad about them. It wasn't like they were bad people. It was really like, what are we fighting for these relationships and always being the one to bring up getting together if there's really not that much common ground? And I think, we need to realize that sometimes we set ourselves up for failure because, again, we're seeking something that's not going to give us what we want. And so we have to understand that
Yeah.
before we do that, that we're going to end up with unmet expectations if we're relying on somebody else to be
Yeah.
that friend to us just because they're convenient in our lives. Oh, we see them, we know them, we can get
Yeah.
together with them. We're going to want them to be something to us. And then when they're not, we're going to be disappointed and we're going to start blaming them. I so often have found myself, um, you know, upset in the past with others because I felt like they neglected our relationship, but they were just being them, you
Right.
know, and the things
Yep.
that they were doing, I wouldn't have wanted to do anyway.
Exactly.
So,
Well, and I found my prayers change. My prayers changed a
amen.
lot over the last few years, from Lord, I want friends, I want this, I want that, to Lord, what do I need? What relationships do I need? Because there's a big difference between want and need. And so he just became that. He filled in all those places, and now he's starting to put people in those places, because that healing has come, right? Um, I saw Tim's question. What if it's your mother? Without knowing the circumstances, I'm just going to make a blanket statement of, you have to decide what boundaries you're going to set. You know, for some people, it's, I'm a grown adult. You do not get to tell me what I'm going to do. Sometimes it has to be bold like that. But, like I said, I don't know those circumstances, and I don't want you to,
Yeah,
dump it out here
I
on.
was looking at that same comment, and I was just wondering, is it that they're not meeting your expectations, or they're abusing your relationship by being
Yeah.
too confrontational? Because if it's, in one way, maybe it's, I think that's what you were trying to say, Amy, but then in the other way, if
Like
that
if it was
person's
a
not
controlling situation.
meeting the,
Yeah.
like, meeting your expectations, you know, a long time ago when my husband went through a state of depression and I could not reach him to be who he typically was to me, you know, all I did was react to every single thing in love. Some wise advice from a great friend of mine. And that was able to turn our situation around. If we are always confrontational about what we need and letting the other person know that they're not meeting our expectations, that puts up a barrier and a guard from them, and they don't know what to do. So then they're going to be standoffish, they're going to be critical back, or they're going to completely walk away and abandon you because they don't want that. And that's what I was facing had I not understood what my friend was telling me to give Marty love in that situation. I could have pushed him further away, but me giving him his love throughout that, no matter, I mean, obviously we don't want to be abused or anything like that, but even in
Right.
there, like in his depression and sadness or his lashing out, if I couldn't respond in love, I just didn't respond, and
Yeah.
I didn't have bad things or negative things to say. And that brings you closer. And I think, when we lost my dad in the car accident, and my mom was coming through her recovery from being in the car accident as well, there were a certain relationship that we had prior to my dad being gone, and a certain relationship that we have now. In the first couple of years, she really needed me for some things. As she, grew stronger and was able to do a lot for herself and moved on, and not that she wasn't capable of doing stuff for herself, but when you're suddenly without somebody after 47 years that you were completely attached to. I never want to say that my mom was the strongest person I know on this planet. But there were just certain things that, I was used to handling that she wasn't used to handling. And there was this really close relationship, and then suddenly it started to turn back to how it was before. Well, I didn't want the pre-loss of dad relationship. I wanted that after dad one where it felt like there was more of an equal connection, you know, but realizing that she's still my mom, she still wanted to be that person that was my mom, not just an equal. So we struggled a little bit to come to a place where we have both now. But
Yeah.
again, there was a lot of communication and there's a lot of love given in those periods when we do have misunderstandings or we don't understand where we are now with our relationship, because everything changes when you lose someone like that you work towards something new. And so I would say don't set your expectations so high that it makes that person fail,
Yeah.
because then you're going to be angry that they're failing you and they have no idea that they're failing you. Set your expectations
Yeah.
low. If you set your expectations low, they will never disappoint you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad to, to have expectations of people, especially family members. You
To
shouldn't
build them.
ever, you know, not have expectations of family members, because family
Right.
should be family. But there are just some times where you have to look at that person, that relationship, and be, kind of that pros and cons list of, are they really capable of being who I would like them to be, or who I need them to be.
Amen.
Just with my relationship with my dad, it was, up and down and sideways. I mean, we had some good years and not so great years. And I think my deepest wounding came after my mom passed away. I had a very high expectation of who I thought my dad was and what I needed him to be in that devastating moment. But I did not realize that he did not have the ability to be that person. He did not have the ability to be the dad that I needed him to be in that moment of time. And because of that, I was dealing with the devastation, but then I dealt with the hurt and the rejection because, my dad wasn't able to fulfill that role. And so I think, if you really are honest with yourself of what expectations you have of each relationship in your life, and then just really ask yourself, do I know them well enough to say I know where they're at on their journey, and are they capable of being everything that I expect them to be? And most of the time, if you're really honest, you're gonna have to dial back your expectations.
Yeah.
And I think it gives them permission to not have to fulfill that role that you've placed on them, kind of like a pedestal of, I need you to be this, but really I know you're only capable of this. And it gives them permission to be human.
Yeah.
It gives them permission to just try to journey themselves. And then you can decide, can we journey together, or, like this close, or do we need to journey together this close or this close, but I think, having those expectations, and it also allows you to set those boundaries, with those different relationships. Go ahead.
No, I was remembering suddenly that part that I couldn't remember, and I still don't remember it. But we were talking about our intentionality shouldn't be based on another's
Right.
unintentional
Yeah.
actions. Maybe that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
Because
can't
some
base
people
we
will
can't base
respond
how
or not
intentional we
respond.
are. Yeah, we can't base how intentional we are based on how intentional other people act toward us. We're either going to be or not be, and I just believe that, you know, we should be as intentional as we can with other people. And it is okay.
Yep.
It is okay to stop engaging with people that make you feel bad, that they're
Yeah.
neglecting your
It
relationship, or
absolutely is.
their smart aleck comments, or their put downs, or their nitpickiness, or their outright abandonment in a relationship that you thought was a strong one. If it no longer, or I shouldn't say no longer, if it's beginning to make you feel bad inside, absolutely you can turn and walk away, because obviously they're not caring as much as you are. But that said, if they would ever ask you, why all of a sudden are you not engaging with me? I did my best. I noticed that this was something that you probably didn't want. I brought it to your attention a few times, and I just knew that the door was open for me to leave. You know,
Yeah.
don't be the person that doesn't respond when you're asked. But yeah, if it's something that
Yeah.
you need to do, absolutely you should be able to do it, and not do it in a mean way.
Well, and I
Don't burn
think,
that bridge.
relationships, yeah, and it's relationships in our lives
Hi,
that we
Suzanne.
definitely need to do this with too. But I think there also needs to be, if we're going to be, cause that ripple effect of positivity,
Yes.
we need to apply our intentionality to that via social media. You know, we don't base our acceptance or rejection on the number of likes and shares and comments. You can't do that. That's so unhealthy. So I'm just going to put that out there. But you need to but you need to be who you are being called to be, even on your social media account. Like I was telling Anne Marie, like I love like everybody's posts and and all that, but that's me. I do read everybody's stuff, and I like it. And if I feel really led to share, I'm just going to share it, you know? But I don't have like only 3 people. I will only share their stuff. That to me just screams like click and, exclusivity, and that's not what social media is about. And so I think if we want to see a change, even on social media, in the social media environment, we have to be intentional with how we interact with people on our social media. I mean, you don't have to write a book in the comment section of every single post on your page, but it's just, you know, it's a way of saying, I see you, and I love what the Lord is speaking through you, or I love that you're, sharing this picture of your kids, or I love me some funny memes. I love those things so much. I love the laughter that my feed gives me some days, because it's like I needed that. But it's to build each other up, and saying, hey, I see you, and I want to support you the best way that I can via social media. And if it's, sharing it, or whatever, it's an intentional act. And um, and it's just, and that's what all this is supposed to be about anyway, right? That's life, is our intentionality of stepping into someone else's life and learning from them. It's drawing from other people's wells and allowing them to draw from yours as well. It's a reciprocation. And the ones that just refuse to do that's not their way of doing social media, to each his own. So what? But I mean, I did see it as rejection for a period of time. It was like, well, why not? I thought we were friends.
I like 2 things. Sarah
What?
Wiseman said she gives herself a few days to really think about something when it's happening, and go to God and ask for discernment in that. But then Holly Hancock just said, and I want to make sure I'm reading. Of course, it always says see more, and you can't really see the rest of it, but it says, should we have to, we don't dial down our expectations from God, just asking. I've always struggled with the saying, and I can't actually see the saying, Holly. I'm sorry, it won't let me open it. But we don't dial down our expectations of God, because God is God. Amy is just a human being, man,
Yeah.
she's not a man, but he is man. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting echo. I'm going back through the whole conversation with you. Hold on. Are you there?
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Oh, wait, you froze.
Are you there?
Yep. I gotcha.
Um, so I'm echoing now, but anyway, we do have to dial down our expectations of man, because they are man. God is, God is God, and He's always. If you don't have expectations, you can't get hurt. And that's the thing. As something I said a little bit ago, is the lower your expectations, the less they'll disappoint. Somebody recently said that, and I snagged onto that. My dad always told me growing up, I don't have expectations with anybody, but you know, I didn't want to grow up that way. I didn't want to grow up being positive that somebody else was going to react, in a positive way, to me. I didn't want to think that people were not always going to be on my side. I didn't want to lower my expectations in others. I wanted to expect people to be exactly who I was to them. And, my dad was
Yeah.
always like, I don't do that, because then I don't get disappointed. And I didn't understand that until now. And now Marty is that sounding voice where he says that frequently. You can't expect other people to be you, Anne-Marie. And you might be
Mm-hmm.
inclusive in that, but those people are not going to be inclusive in that.
Yeah.
And it's been a big struggle of mine to work around that. And I'm really sorry. I'm kind of feel like I'm talking in circles right now. I had to take my headphones out because I'm hearing it about 30 seconds behind. So I'm going to unplug my headphone again and try
Oh,
to tune in again.
I was gonna say I'm not hearing an echo on my end. I don't know about the broadcast.
Broadcast.
You know, I think.
You know, I think.
Oh, now there it is.
We're good? Yay.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Um, my like for my expectations, you know, at this point, a time in my life, I think you just kind of have to resolve that people, you know, my expectations is that you just at least act like a human being, you know, just
I
be a
expect
human
people
being.
to follow through with what they say. If they say that they're your friend, if they say, you know, they're in covenant relationship with you, or, you know,
I
it's kingdom
know.
family, then okay, you know,
But are they capable? And that's where the struggle is, right? And I think there's always going to be the disappointments. There's always going to be the wounding that comes, um, because there are just some people out there that are only intentional with a very few select things, and sometimes people are not on that list. So you know, and that's the unfortunate side. You know, that's the one that spoils the bunch, right? But
yeah,
I think, you know, with those expectations, I've just resolved that there's always going to be somebody that comes along, that might not be that kind, that might hurt my feelings or whatever. But the more, it's like the older you get and the more healing you go through, and the more resolve that you have in who the Lord has created you to be, those voices become a lot like, you know, in that scripture, Psalm 23, you know, when you're feasting at the table in the presence of my enemies. You know, the enemies is not just the devil and all of his minions. It can be the voices or the lack thereof, those silent whispers. It can be those little rejections. It can be all of that. And the more resolved you become in who you are, and who the Lord created you to be, and you're really just sitting at his table and you're just feasting on what he has set in front of you, those voices begin to diminish. And then you become to a place, you get to a place where you just don't hear them anymore. You recognize that they're there. You know they're there, but
mm-hmm.
they just don't affect you anymore. They don't have that control over you. You know, I would get so emotional about certain things, and then it was just like, why am I so upset about this? Why am I so hurt about this? Why did that hurt so bad? Well, because it started out one way and then it just dropped off to this with no communication. So the wounding was real, but did they intend to wound me? I don't know. You know,
Right.
it's some of those things that you don't know. So then you go, okay, whether it was intentional or not, I'm just going to resolve, walk me through the forgiveness, heal the wound, and let the voices fade. You know, let me feast on who you created me to be. Let that be my focus. You know, and once that happens, it's like I said earlier, it's like the Lord just kind of divinely orders your dartboard for you.
Yeah.
Those people that were not intentional, those people that were controlling, manipulative, just telling you yes every time you turn around, all of those supposed inner circle people, they just kind of fall off. And the Lord really just kind of puts the right people there. Um, you
Yeah.
know, and it
I
just Sarah.
what? I can't read the comments always
Oh, sorry.
disappear.
She said, I was having the thought earlier this week, how did anybody end friendships before the unfollow, unfriend button or block?
Yeah.
Oh, they talked, or they're, you know, all their friends' bikes were in their front yard and yours wasn't.
Ooh,
Oh, I know. I
you
know.
know, sometimes
And that's, you just can't say anything.
God removes those people from your inner circle because he wants to be the only one in there too. Outside, you know, and I have found that recently that I was needing to just really spend any moment that I was not with my husband, my kids, or my mom, or caring for my in laws, that I was just with him, you know, and that's where, you know, Amy and I absolutely communicated through this, but our communication was not as frequent as it was before. But, you know, she was okay with that because she understood that God was drawing me
Yeah.
close to him, and my time was limited, and my priorities were where they needed to be. And at that time, my priority needed to
Well,
be
and that's,
focused on him so that I could see
yeah.
him moving in some different situations for me, but also working in me to bring me to the next level of growth that I wanted in him, in my ability to interact with others and to be able to navigate and um, prioritize things, you know, to be able to be what I needed to be to other people, meeting their expectations, and also not letting myself down on expectations I have of myself. You know, and it's all
Yeah.
it's trying to just find that balance. And you know, just like our tires need to be balanced every so often or even realigned, you know, that we need that as well. And like, you know, I didn't know until this week that every time you get your oil changed, you should rotate or do whatever he was saying when he was telling me at the Honda shop the other day. But, you know, we have to do that on a periodic basis, and it has to be every so.
But that's, you know, that's your real bullseye people though, because when you say, I'm overwhelmed, I need to step away, I need to do that, your inner circle people are going to go,
Yeah.
yes, you
Or,
do.
or
You
those
do.
people that
You need
are
to go in
right,
the quiet. You need to unplug. You need to,
yeah, those people that
you
are
know,
right there on that rim that might not be the people that you talk to every day, but you do interact frequently. So they're on that next level. You know, you might not get to communicate with
yeah.
everybody what's going on in your life, why you're not your absence from this or that, but those people or you can reach out to someone where you notice that they've backed off. And that touched me in a
Mm-hmm.
great way where people were reaching out. Are you doing okay? You know, how are you? You know, I know you had a lot going
Yeah.
on, you know, and that was cool to be checked in on because I didn't really know that
Yeah.
those people cared that much to check in on me. So,
Well, that speaks a lot of, you know, just that intentionality. And, you know, people need that. You know, people need to, you know, whether people think they need it or not, or say they need it or not, people like to have those little touches, you know,
yeah.
and I think, you know, that's where your real tried and true people are, the ones who are intentional. That is such a big word for me. It has been such a huge word for me over the last couple of years, is intentional, because everything we do should be with intentionality. Every everything, every single thing. I mean, if we're going to, you know, be like Christ, everything that God did was intentional from the very first
Amen.
breath, words spoken till now. I mean, intentional. And those who just aren't, for lack of better terms, they're just being lazy, or they don't
They
feel
don't
the
feel.
need to be intentional in their interactions because of whatever their reasons are. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
You know, and that's when, you know, when you really go through some really hard stuff, you will see who your inner circle, your bullseye
That's right.
people are, because they will be the ones that will sit there and say, okay, do you just need silence? Because if you need silence, I won't message you. I'm just going to pray for you. Or they're going to say, you know, what are your priorities right now? And if they're out of order, then your bullseye purple. I'm getting tongue tied. Your bullseye person will say your priorities are out of whack. You need to have more time
That's right.
with the Lord, and you need to spend more time with your husband, your kids, doing your work. All this other stuff gets dropped off right now until
Right.
this is in good working order. And if you've got someone in your inner circle that is like super needy, then you can meet their needs, um, and you don't feel depleted. Do you know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
don't have a problem pouring out into them while they're going through this difficult thing. You don't get mad at them, you don't get frustrated with them, you don't feel any of that. Just wanting to like help them, redirect and get back to
Hmm.
the place where they feel steadfast and sturdy and fulfilled, or whatever it is they're going through, or healed, or you know what I mean. And those are that's what you need to be. Because if you can't be that for someone, don't try to put yourself in someone's inner circle, because you've got to be able to be at a place where, I mean, your inner circle people will sacrificially love you.
And I think Sarah's right that
I didn't see that.
social media has destroyed intentionality. It really has. And I think that's why more and more this year
Absolutely.
I have stepped away and I only allow myself to be on here a
Yeah.
certain amount, because I really only have a certain amount of time left with my girls. I only have a certain amount. Georgia had her first job this summer. Right now she's 11 hours away, and at a university. And my time is limited. She's got one school year left, and I
Yeah.
need to be intentional with that time. We have parents that we want to care for and spend time with. We want to be intentional with our time. My other
Yeah.
daughter, she's got a lot going on, and she's, preparing to be ready to go to college. I want to be intentional with that time. And then you don't want to lose your relationship with your husband. You want to be intentional with that. But it's okay also to
Yeah.
have those people in that bullseye. And as long as you're communicating with them and they understand that you have to readjust your priorities for a certain period of time, they will understand that. I mean, Amy and I have a small little chat group, and, we all go through turns where we're like, oh, we're so sorry that we weren't around for the last 2 or 3 days, because we really had to reprioritize as to what we needed to get done during all of that. And I just wanted to say to Sarah
Yeah.
Wiseman, because I know she struggled this last school year with Poppy going off to school. Kids are growing up. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, Sarah, just wait. I have spent literally since last October, when Georgia started her junior year, I started to cry, and I've cried this whole past year. And Ryan said to me today, when we spent the day together today, we both got our ears second pierced. Um, she said to me, she goes, Mom, we just knew last week when you were flipping out that you just had anxiety because Georgia was going far, far away. And I was like, you better believe it. So, and it was more about her getting there. And now that she's there, I'm celebrating her, which is so totally cool. That said, I do need
Yeah.
to prioritize my evening, and I'm going to get a FaceTime very soon from my oldest baby. I don't want to miss that FaceTime because they have to get up at like
Oh, yeah.
6 to make it to classes. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, they have to have breakfast and be at their first class like at 8:30 or something like that. So I want to hear from her because I won't see her till Saturday. So I hate to cut this party
Oh, no,
short.
that's okay. I think we really covered a lot. I think we said what, the Lord really wanted us to say. And our prayer is that, whatever the Lord gives us, pray that it brings some healing and some revelation, for everyone to kind of chew on and
Hmm.
take home and evaluate, because that's what it is. You it's always an evaluation of, where we're at in this moment, in this season, what the Lord wants us, to be doing, and and just be obedient in that. So,
Well, and I think
all
that's
right,
where
so we'll
we
go ahead and just
start to talk about
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
our reprioritizing different things with ministry, as just as our,
Hmm.
I lost the word I was looking for, but just, as we change our dynamics in our relationships change, whether it's our family, our work, or even our ministry, dynamics will change for various different reasons. And while many of you, we even got a couple messages, just are we still doing anything together? There were times I just couldn't prioritize Facebook Lives because it takes a lot of preparation, believe it or not. It's not, and it's not sitting here writing out a script, but it's more spending time with the Lord to find out what we want to talk about, because Amy and I are not going to get on here unless it's something we feel the Lord has pressed on our hearts. And
Yeah.
He has drawn our attention to prioritizing some other things that we're trying to do with our ministry. So we aren't going to be on here as frequently as we were the first year we were in ministry. But we do
Yeah.
like the connection that we have with people, and we want to be intentional about that connection. So we're going to try to be on here as frequently as we can. But we also know that you understand that at times it might be our family drawing us, and it might be just other things God wants us to do through ministry. And sometimes that might be live, sometimes that might be writing, and sometimes that might be connecting in person in areas that
Yeah.
we have right here in our own walking grounds. I've had some different times that I've in the last few months that I've met with people individually in town here that may have needed to hear my testimony or speak of their own, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
God is our navigation system in everything, and that includes
Absolutely.
this ministry. So Amy and I aren't going anywhere anytime soon, because we believe we're raw and real for a purpose.
Yeah.
It's just what that purpose is at any given moment is going to always be led by God, not by ourselves.
Yep. Yep. Just staying fluid, letting him tell us when to speak and
That's right.
what to do. So, all right. We love you guys, and we love
Yes.
your intentionality of,
Yes.
being a part of this, and being a part of our lives, and just the support. I mean, this having people on here to read the comments and have these conversations with, that's, you guys intentionally took time out. That we don't take that lightly, and we honor you
Yes.
for doing that, and we appreciate it. So, of course, if we do another live broadcast, we will give you guys a heads up, advanced warning, um, so we can get that scheduled. So, love you guys,
Love
and we
you.
will see you soon. Bye
Alrighty.
bye.
Bye.